All right, I'll get started here. It's very quiet on this laptop. I don't know why. If any of you need to speak, just type in the chat. I don't know why this laptop's very quiet here. Anyways, good morning, everyone. Very nice to see all your smiling faces. We are going to cover foreclosures and power of sales. It's an unfortunate reality that we're seeing a lot of them in our market because of all those interest rate hikes going up, a lot of people upside down on their mortgage. And unfortunately, a lot of people are coming into this. So we need to know how to handle them. We need to understand the differences between them. And we need to know sort of what paperwork we're going to be asking of our client that we're listing with. So I just go straight to it. Okay, so the first thing is we need to know what the difference is between a foreclosure and a power of sale. Does anyone really understand or know that there's a difference between the two? Right? So the foreclosure is the legal process where the lender takes possession of the property after a borrower defaults on their mortgage. So you default on your mortgage, bank takes the property over in their name, and then typically requires a court judgment. You have to take it to court and get a court judgment from them, get a court involvement. And then the lender sells the property to recover the owed, okay? Versus power sale, it's the same sort of process. Hold on one moment. But it allows the lender to sell the property without court involvement after a borrower defaults. So the lender doesn't take ownership of the property necessarily, right? But they can act as the seller. And we only see this really in Canada and the States, that there's a difference here between power of sale and foreclosure, right? In other countries, a lot of them, they just take it back. You know what I mean? So we have this process, which is good and bad. I mean, people default sometimes not for nefarious reasons. We know that a lot of times, like now, it's the interest rate that has affected everybody. And they just had a hard time catching up. So we look at the reasons why are our clients going into power sale or foreclosure? So interest rate is definitely one reason. They default on their mortgage payments, right? But there's other reasons too, like sometimes our clients lose their job or they get a divorce or they fall into some kind of financial hardship for some reason. So those are generally the most common reasons we see why our clients are going into foreclosures and powers of sale. Now, the last point is the one that we're really in is the rising interest rates and market downturns. That's the biggest reason we see our clients suffering right now, right? So why do we need to understand the process? Because these sales involve legal and financial complexities. We're often dealing directly with a lawyer of the bank. So, you have very little room for mistakes, right? And these lawyers are very strict and they get pretty mad at you very quickly if you don't know or follow the rules for navigating it the first few times. So you also need to understand, because you need to be able to advise your buyers and your sellers, whether you're purchasing a foreclosure or selling a foreclosure, what their options are, what their risks are, what their benefits are, what they're capable of doing during the process, right? And then mistakes on paperwork or disclosures can lead to big legal issues, right? Like I say, most of the time, especially if you're the listing agent, you're dealing directly with that lawyer for the bank. So we go through a foreclosure process. Now, we don't usually see it till the sale part, but I thought we'd go over it a little bit just to see what's happening up to that point, right? So what happens in a foreclosure is the person normally defaults on their mortgage. So the lender issues a formal notice of missed payment. So they'll say, we're 1 month behind, 2 months behind, 3 months behind. Now, every lender has different rules what they follow. They might say at the 90-day mark or the 120-day mark, you're going to get sent to their legal team, right? But up until that point, they'll start issuing you and they'll give you a chance to catch it up, the default. They don't just go into foreclosure right away, right? So in a judicial foreclosure, because that's like when they actually want to take possession of the property, you have to file a lawsuit against that person. So that person who's in foreclosure will get legal paperwork that looks like you're being sued. You guys have all seen it, the Superior Court of Justice, CIBC versus John Smith in this property for this amount, for this legal description, right? So it'll be a proper lawsuit that is filed against your client if they're the seller. And then very often when you find once they get the legal paperwork and they get sued, the seller or the owner of the property can deal directly then with the lawyers of the bank, right? a lot of times they're allowed a redemption period. So the lawyers are willing to negotiate. Like, in all honesty, it's very difficult to lose your home in Canada because nobody really wants to force you out of your home unless you're just not paying and not willing to work with it. So even at this point, the lawyers will work with you to try and come up with some sort of payment plan with your clients, right? So they'll have a chance to pay the owed amount to reclaim the property. So if you're 3, 4, 5 payments behind by this point, they might say, okay, you know what? You need to pay me in a lump sum, or you get the next 5 months to pay your regular mortgage payment plus a portion of your arrears that they agree upon until we're all caught up. But if you default on that, then you go back into the foreclosure process, right? So they do give you a chance to redeem it. Very often, like you see, by the time it gets to a foreclosure or a power sale, when you get it as a realtor, they've been in that process for about 2 years. Do you know what I mean? The last one we had was, I think, even over 2 years. The bank was really not wanting to sell it on the person until they really get to a point where they have no choice, right? So then you go to court proceedings and judgments. So if the borrower doesn't resolve the default, or they just can't, or they are unable to, or they won't, they don't want to, the court orders the foreclosure on the property. So then they get the property is either auctioned or transferred to the lender. We don't see a lot of auctions happening here. If and normally they want to see the highest bidder. So we always, I don't know, back in the day, foreclosures used to go for a lot less. I find lenders are a little greedy now. Everything is going for basic market value. But at the end of the day, the reason why you might get a deal on a foreclosed property is because the lender's only looking for what they're at. They don't care about the market value, right? So if your client had the mortgage for a very short time, and the property's worth 900, but the mortgage is still 750, they just want to really see that 750 mark. Anything above it is gravy for them because they're just recovering the loss of the loan that they've lent to the client, right? So what is our role? Our role is listing and marketing and selling the property at the end of the day. So working with the lender's asset manager, which is the lawyer, 99.9%. I don't know when it wouldn't be the lawyer, actually. And then managing buyer expectations and financing issues. Okay, so if you're working on the listing side, you want to have that discussion with the lawyer and say, okay, what are we aiming for here? And what you're going to have to do is when the lawyer comes to you from the bank and says, okay, you know what, here's this property, we're going to foreclose on it. They have to present to the lender a picture of what the market looks like. So we normally do CMAs for our clients. There is a little bit of a format that the bank is looking for. A lot of them will give you a form to fill out. I should just see if I can have an example of that. But they'll give you a form to fill out, and it's just like doing our CMA. It's like 55 hibiscus sold for 970, and 85 Bean Street sold for 850. And so we think that the property should sell in and around this much. Okay. And you have to be pretty accurate and keep on top of it because the bank is also going to look for this weekly from you, the bank's lawyer. They're going to look for a weekly update on that CMA, not just the initial CMA. Okay, I got the listing. But if you're up for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks of the market, the lawyer is going to continually ask you for that, for updates, what happened in the market. Okay. So the power of sale process, it's pretty much the same as far as the realtors are concerned, but we'll just go over sort of the steps behind what leads up to that. So the lender sends a legal notice to the borrower after you have missed payments, same sort of thing. Then there's that waiting or redemption period we're talking about where you get the chance to redeem or catch up your payments with the lender. And then selling the property. Unlike foreclosure, the lender doesn't own the property. It's listed and sold on the open market, right? You'll see that it's being sold by CIBC, but then there'll still be a transfer of title at the end from the seller, basically the owner of the property, right? And then distribution of sale proceeds. The lender recoups the outstanding loan balance, interest, and fees. Any remaining funds go to the homeowner. I don't know many foreclosures I've done where there's a lot of remaining funds. Okay, by the time you get to this process, you'll find that the bank and the penalties they're charging, plus what the lawyer's charging, plus you're paying the realtor's fees and the co-op broker's fees, and nobody's fighting for full value at this point, right? They're just fighting for the highest bidder that comes, and the bank doesn't want to really keep the property. They don't want the key to the property. They want it gone. They just want to recoup what they're out. You find that I don't think anybody's ever got a big chunk back after their foreclosure. I think, most of the time it's a done deal. If anything, some people might owe money at the end of the day. So, but anyways, that's the way it's supposed to work. Remaining funds go to the homeowner. And then again, your realtor's role. So you represent the lender and marketing the selling the property the same. Ensure compliance with legal requirements and buyer disclosures. Disclosures are big, important. You got to make sure people know. Most of the time, we're going to talk about that they're as is sales because the bank's never lived in the property, so they can't guarantee anything. And then managing buyer's due diligence process. So we'll talk about the buyer, I think, in a little bit because I think we're going to focus on the listing for now. Yeah.
So let's say the seller, right, that has a two mortgage, one is lender A and then private mortgage. He's not paying the private mortgage back. Does he have the authority to go after him and go for?
So what happens in most cases when you have a private lender or a second mortgager, if they want to take control because you're not paying them and they feel it's worth for them, what they'll do is they'll take over your property and they'll take charge of the first. So a lot of these guys will say, you're not paying me towards my $250,000 that I lent you. So I'm going to take your CIBC and pay the 500 you owe and take control of the property and go into foreclosure that way. First always gets paid first, though. So you have to remember that. So if second wants to take control, usually that's the way they'll go around doing it. Right?
Sometimes I notice, right, they set up, they have their own offer. Like, for example, power of sale or foreclosure, they have their own offer document. In the sense, sometimes they say a few days more offer, 8 days, 10 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Do we need to disclose it though?
Disclose what?
That it's for,
Well, most of the time you'll see because the seller will be anyways, it's usually a giveaway because it'll be CIBC or community trust or whatever, right? In the seller field instead of the seller's name. Yeah. Yeah. And some banks will insist. The funny thing is that some banks will insist that you put it's a foreclosure or power sale. Some say you absolutely cannot. So we worked with CIBC, was it the last? CIBC did not want us to put foreclosure in the listing anywhere. It was being sold CIBC. You can see the seller is CIBC, but for some reason, they didn't want us to put those words foreclosure in the body of the listing anywhere. So it's not always necessary. I don't know if Sri walked away there. I can repeat it to him, but it's not always a requirement. But some banks require it. Some lenders want you to put it in there. That's power sale or foreclosure. And some will totally forbid it. So for some reason, CIBC forbid that we put foreclosure anywhere in the body of the listing. So I'm not sure what their reasoning is behind that. So realtors' role in selling foreclosures and powers of sale. So pricing strategy. Properties are often priced below market value for a quick sale. Market analysis is critical and condition issues can impact value. So this is where we're talking that the bank normally makes you fill out that form and they're going to say, okay, 85 hibiscus sold for this much, 870 and whatever, 123 Main Street sold for this much. But I feel that this property isn't going to be worth that much because there was renters and the people didn't take care of it and it's in damaged condition. So maybe you're going to fall more around the 820 mark on this property. They're looking for that information from you. They have an idea, but they want it in writing from the realtor to sort of see what's going on. And it might affect the way that you actually get the sale. So I don't think we were the only realtors up to get the last foreclosure that we did because when we did it, we just, me, I over research and I give my charts and whatever and my nice booklet form and I send it along. So aside from just the paper the bank gave us, we gave a really good presentation. And I think the lawyer was like, oh, wow, everybody just filled out the form and you guys sent a great presentation. Like, oh, we got the listing that way. So make sure that you're doing good research because the bank wants to feel confident that you know what's going on in the market. Market the property. So MLS listings must disclose foreclosure or power of sale status. Now, I know we were just talking about this, the power of sale or foreclosure has to be in there, but it was really strange when we did our foreclosure for power of sale, foreclosure for CIBC last year. They did not want us to put foreclosure in the body of the MLS listing for some reason. I was just saying that to everybody, but I'm not sure why. But you can see that it is anyways because it says CIBC. Professional photos and property descriptions should set buyer expectations. So this is not the kind of stage and make the property look pretty and whatever. It's realistic expectations of what the property looks like, right? Look at our listing from that foreclosure. That was like a mold infested property. There were ugly pics. Targeting investors and first-time home buyers looking for deals, right? So of course you're going to go back and appeal to your roster of, renovators and contractors or families that are looking for a first-time home and like home buyers that have a lower budget, or maybe an investor who might buy something on the side, and go and try and pick from that pool of people that you're working with. Handling buyer inquiries. So buyers may ask about financing challenges, property condition, or liens. So setting realistic expectations about as-is condition. So there's a couple of problems. We all know that a lot of banks will fuss with financing when you say as is, where is, right? A lot of these mortgage brokers don't want to see that in the listing because it gives them problems for financing. But the other challenge, if you're working with buyers and you're working with foreclosures and the property's in a really bad condition, what's going to happen if it's not livable, if it's full of mold or it's not livable? Or maybe the guy was in the middle of a renovation and got the house and didn't finish it. There's no kitchen or the bathroom isn't finished. Bank's not financing those properties, right? So you have to make sure that your buyers are aware of this, because if the property's not in a livable condition, the bank is not going to finance it, right? So they're looking at a renovation or construction loan or 100% private financing for this property at the end of the day. So you have to bring those realistic expectations to them. So if they're the first-time home buyer that's really squeaking away with hardly anything and just their down payment, this might not be the property if it doesn't have the kitchen finished or the bathroom finished, right? Because starting off with private financing might be really tough for that family. Whereas your investor client might go, okay, yeah, no problem. I can do that for 6 months, get my renovators in there, and then switch over to the bank, no problem, right? So make sure you know who you're working with, and set those realistic expectations when you put as is, where is, the challenge you might get with financing for that. Negotiation considerations. Lenders are less flexible on price, so they're not looking to go back and forth. Usually it's a one and done, right? You're not going to hear about it for 2-3 days and then realize that you lost the bid. Offers may require a bank or lender approval. They may want to really see that ahead of time, knowing that they're picking a confident offer. And closing timelines can be longer due to legal and administrative requirements. So they might need the bank to take off, liens that they're going to pay out for the client. Like say there was a small construction lien on the property, stuff like that. There might be extra stuff they have to do before closing. So you might not get a quick 30-day closing on the property. Sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes they want you to close really quick because the bank just wants to get rid of the property. So either way, you have to be prepared. All right, so we have required paperwork and contracts. So you have your regular listing agreement. And like we were talking about, sometimes they have their own added paperwork, right? Addendums and schedules they want to add in. Special clauses that they might be required. They might ask you to purposely, please insert this clause in the schedule, right? Terms often favor the lender, not often, always. They always favor the lender, limiting seller obligations, okay? And often bank's lawyer will cross off many pre-printed clauses. You've never seen our ORIA forms more chopped up than when it goes through the bank's lawyer. 90% of those pre-printed clauses that we are told not to touch are all crossed off by the bank. They don't want to see any of them. They don't want to guarantee anything. They don't like the way it's worded. The bank's lawyers disagree with half of what ORIA has put on our paperwork. So they just slash it all. Bank lender specific addendums. So additional terms imposed by the lender. They might want schedule on there saying that, they're responsible for any health issues going forward, that you agree that the property's full of mold and it's up to your duty to remediate the property properly, right? You can't come back on them for that. They often restrict buyer conditions, so no repairs or warranties. So, when we go to guarantee chattels and fixtures are working, or we guarantee that there's never been a death in the property, or that there's never been used for the growth of marijuana, fine. We can do that. We can ask our sellers because they've lived in the property, but the bank won't guarantee anything because they've never spent any time in the property. They're purely the lender, right? So they don't want to guarantee absolutely anything. No warranties, no guarantees. And they certainly don't want to fix anything, right? Court approvals for foreclosures. So some transactions require court confirmation before closing. So like I was saying, sometimes there might be a lien or something to take off. And they just want to make sure everything's clean, good to close. You might have to wait for some of that. And disclosure requirements. So typically sellers and lenders provide minimal disclosures. Again, because they don't know about the property. Realtors must follow local disclosure laws. So what are we supposed to follow? So it's a good thing that you take a walk through the property because the bank's not going to come and take a walk through. The bank has hired the lawyer is hiring you, and this is your biggest time to shine for doing your due diligence because you have no one to rely on. You don't have the seller to ask. So you have to walk through the property and see what are the defects that you can see. Can you see that the ceiling is leaking? Can you see that there's a crack? Can you see that there's something wrong? You want to do those disclosures and make sure that you're putting them up properly. Right. And then we have risks and challenges. So we talked a little bit about buyer financing hurdles. So many foreclosed homes are in poor condition, affecting mortgage eligibility, right? Lenders may require a higher down payment or cash purchases, right? If property is without a working kitchen, washroom, or something else is deemed essential, the banks may not finance, right? So if they feel that it's not in livable condition because the mold is too much, or the flooding was too much in the property, or I don't know, there was a fire, or anything you can think of that's happening to these properties, they may not finance. So your buyer definitely has to know whether they're going to be going for private or whether they have to do a cash deal or do some kind of construction loan at the end of the day. Property condition and access issues. Boy, did we have an access issue with the last one. Many properties have been neglected or vandalized. So you have to put disclosures up. You know, if you're walking through and the floorboards are like this because it was a grow up and it's a trip hazard, you have to put that into your listing, right? To make the other realtor aware, right? Even not in the sense of foreclosures, like we have the property up north right now. Most of it's a hike on a hill. So I put in my listing, I said, everybody wear comfortable shoes for this listing because we're gonna be trekking around. So you have to make sure that you put those disclosures in. The last one we did, we had mold. We actually suggested to the lawyer that we make them sign a health disclosure saying that they're fully aware and that they should be wearing a properly rated mask to enter the property. And they hold, they don't hold the realtor or the lawyer or the bank liable for going into the property and anything that happens because it was so full of mold. I didn't go in once. I think Shiraz went in twice, refused to go in again after that. It was terrible. You have to let other agents know what they're coming into. They can't show up for a showing without a mask and be dragging their clients through it, right? So everybody had to sign that release form, per se. And then we made sure that everybody was showing up with their masks and stuff to enter the property. Yeah, so other occupied properties may involve an eviction process. So do you have a tenant in there who's terrible? Forget a tenant. Even the owner, the original owner of the property might be really upset that this is happening and they don't want to leave. Even though they haven't been able to pay and they've gone into foreclosure, they might be the one that you have to kick out of the property. So the buyer may encounter that because the bank's not going to necessarily deal with that for you. So by the time your buyer goes and closes, what do you do if the seller's still there? Well, your buyer now has to go through that legal process. So they have to be aware that they might not be able to immediately move into the property, in case these things happen, right? It's not always like I say, it's not always a tenant, it could be the seller or the owner, pardon. Legal risks for realtors. So misrepresenting the property condition or foreclosure process and failing to inform buyers about potential liens or title issues. So you're going to try and find out as much as you can. Like if you know there's a first and a second, you could say, yes, CIBC is selling, but I know that there's a second that could possibly, come back and there might be issues thereafter. Because see, the first is not going to make sure the second's paid. They don't care about the second, right? So just because the first goes and sells, if there's still an outstanding amount, that second might come back and not take their lien off the property or might, try other legal proceedings towards the property. So you have to be very careful and make sure everybody is fully aware of everything that you know about. So you have to do your research and really sit down with the lawyer and talk to them about all the different things happening with the property. Some Some buyers may seek to exploit distressed homeowners. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Because if you're going into foreclosure, they might say, hey, let me buy it, really cheap beyond this. If you have someone who's going to do that, because I'm going to go over kind of what our owners can do to combat our foreclosures. You got to make sure that you're not selling undervalued, that they're covering their costs, they're covering their outstanding mortgages on the property and all that stuff. So you have to make sure that you're not exploiting that homeowner, because once that distressed homeowner gets back on their feet again, if you sold the property to your buddy realtor's, buyer for way under market value and it barely covered their costs, and they were left with, not, $80,000 worth of debt that they weren't able to pay on their mortgage, you could get in trouble for that as a realtor for being unethical, right? And realtors should be mindful of fair dealing and transparency. So again, that goes back on that same thing. Try not to do anything. These are not the times to cheat or play around in real estate, because you're dealing with the bank itself and you're dealing with the lawyers, right? So great business as much as you possibly can. So any questions to that point so far? We understand sort of the difference in the proceedings. I know that's the boring part. And basically our only role in all of that I talked about is getting to the sale part. But it's good to have an understanding of what's happening with the property ahead of time. Okay. So can a homeowner stop a foreclosure or a power of sale? Right? I get asked this often. So in a foreclosure, the jurisdiction allows, we talked about that redemption period. So they are allowed that redemption period where the homeowner can reclaim the property. They can pay the outstanding debt, interest, and any other lender incurred costs before the sale is finalized. So we talk about lawyers, but a lot of times I forgot to mention there's a property management cost too, because the bank isn't walking out to that property to secure that property and change the locks. They hire a property management company. And especially in the wintertime, the property management company is making weekly visits. They might be mowing the lawn, making sure the heat's on, the pipes aren't bursting, that nobody's vandalized the property. So you get that extra cost as well on top of everything. In a power sale, the borrower may stop the process by paying the arrears before the sale closes. However, if the property is already under contract, the sale may still proceed depending on the lender's decision. So they might say to you, okay, you know what, we sold the property, but you have up until 30 days before closing or 15 days before closing. You still have that, even though they've sold the property on you, that last ditch opportunity. Like I say, in Canada, they really don't want to take away your property from you, right? Period. They give you lots of opportunity. So if different lenders have different rules all the time. So say this lender is giving you until 30 days before closing, but you're able to save it in 20 days. Well, then, they might still give it to you at the end of the day. It all depends. And you also have to make your buyers aware of this. You have to know that these clauses are included for the seller or the homeowner, so that your buyer might get 15 days before closing and not have a property to close on because the homeowner was actually able to recoup their property and figure out a way to save it. Right? If a redemption happens after an offer is accepted, but before closing, the sale is usually canceled and the buyer's deposit is refunded. So most of the time they give it back to the homeowner. Really and truly, they're not trying to take away people's homes. It's just if their hands are tied, the bank has no other choice. What are you going to do if somebody's not paying, right? But at the end of the day, they're really not trying. It's not as aggressive as everybody thinks it is. Can a buyer request repairs in a foreclosure or a power sale? Generally, no. Banks aren't willing to do anything. They're not like, as is, where is what they're saying. We're not guaranteeing any chattels or fixtures. So your buyer should be conducting inspections, but not expect price reductions. So they're doing their inspections purely to know what work they have to go and do in the property. You can't go back to the bank and say, their roof is leaking, I want $10,000 off. They're going to say, go away, and they'll go to the next bidder, right? So they don't care about fixing anything. The only exception is where a lender offers limited repairs to make the property financeable. So this you won't really see at the sale point. Sometimes they'll get the property management to fix up a couple of things. So they say, this washroom's in total disrepair, but if we replace the toilet and fix that sink, then we know that the buyer can get some financing. They might get the property management to do a few things like that, but you'll never know about it. It'll be before it goes to market, right? They'll make sure that they know it's going to be financeable, right? How do lenders determine which offer to accept? Highest bidder. They don't care. Highest bidder. Fewer conditions. They want to see firm sales, strong sales. They don't want any contingencies. They don't want to see financing. They don't want to see inspection. They certainly don't want to wait for your property to sell. They like fast closings generally, because they don't want to hold on to this property. They don't, because the more they hold on to it, the more it's, they're paying the property management company to go and take care of it. The more they're paying taxes on it and utilities. Cash buyers versus finance buyers. Cash offers are favored because financing delays and can complicate the process, which is true. We all know at the end of the day, even if you have a firm sale in hand, you can get right to closing date and the whole thing will fall apart and explode in your face because they didn't get financing for some reason at the end of the day. So, I mean, I don't have a lot of cash buyers, but if you guys have really rich clients, everybody's buying cash these days, then you guys would probably be favored more in a foreclosure or a power sale transaction. What happens if there are liens on the property? So foreclosures, junior liens like second mortgages, unpaid taxes, they may be wiped out depending on the jurisdiction or foreclosure type. So a lot of seconds walk away if it's a small amount. You find it's not worth the fight for them. If they have only loaned like $40,000, $50,000 on the property, are they really going to buy out the $700,000 CIBC and go through that whole process so they can recoup their 50? No, they walk away. They consider it a loss, and like unpaid taxes, stuff like that. If it's in foreclosure, a lot of times they're going to work with the bank and they're just going to wipe that because they know they're not going to chase the person for it because obviously they're in foreclosure. So let me get to some of the paperwork here. How do I handle an uncooperative or still occupying homeowner? So we talked about this quickly. They might still be in the property. The lender typically handles the eviction process after obtaining court approval. So you'll find they've already gone in, secured the property, changed the locks. It's not very often. I haven't had to deal with one, thankfully, a homeowner still in the property. I've had disgruntled homeowners call me once I put the foreclosure up for sale, because then they'll see it online and they're not living at the property, but they're very, very angry that we put it up. I mean, how do you deal with that as a realtor, right? Just remember it's business at the end of the day and just be very gentle and calm. It's upsetting to them. They're losing their home. And they'll say, how'd you put my property up for sale? And you're like, oh my goodness, right? I'm sorry. I don't know. The bank just hired me. Like, you just have to keep it. Don't entertain the argument on the phone. But we're well advertised on MLS. It's not a secret that we're selling their property. So you might get a disgruntled call from that homeowner. There you go. Realtors should avoid directly engaging in eviction matters and advise buyers to consult a paralegal or lawyer. So usually they know the process better. It's good to consult them, have them govern your client, because that's not our forte. Our forte is selling the property, not evicting the homeowner, right? I think the last point I've already touched on as well. Can a buyer get a mortgage on a foreclosure or power sale property? Yes, but it can be more difficult. It has to be in livable condition. It depends on what major repairs are needed. And you always want to make sure that they're getting pre-approved. Is your client going to be approved for this, at the end of the day when you're looking at foreclosed properties? So does anybody have any questions about that brief overview? I find I run out of time all the time, but hopefully it gives you guys a good picture on foreclosures.
Power of sale, I'm looking at it, right? So when you put the schedule B with a lot of clauses,
Yeah.
we need to be with the lawyer.
If your buyer wants to, you can review with a lawyer, but I'm going to tell you that even if that lawyer disputes it because it's the bank and the bank's lawyers, they're not going to really be amicable with you crossing off anything in their schedule. Their schedule's there for a reason, and they're going to be really rigid about changing anything, right? This isn't a brokerage or a realtor or a regular homeowner you're working with. It's the bank and their lawyer. So if they put a schedule in there, yeah, get your lawyer to review it so you're aware for your buyer what it says in there, but don't expect any changes. Nothing's going to change. Yeah. All right.
Sometimes they give 8 days to review the property and then the offer is accepted later on. It's very tricky, those kinds of situations.
So you're right. So every bank has something different. So some want fair play, I think is what they call it. So they will make you go and put the property on, and they won't accept an offer for 8 days or 10 days. They might say it has to be on the market for that long, right? That stops people from going, hey, you know what, Sri, I got this foreclosure property coming up. I'm gonna put it up tomorrow, put an offer in, nobody will even see what's coming, and your client got a good deal on it, right? Because it's unethical, and the bank is supposed to be acting ethically, obviously, right? So they do force us sometimes to put it up for a certain number of days before we're able to sell it or accept any offers on it. Just want to go on to this document really quickly.
Still the same.
I was just going to go over that. So all the forms are still the same, but you'll find, like, if you're listing a freehold property, you got your listing contract, you're going to fill it all out. You're going to send it over to that lawyer, and that lawyer is going to slash off the contract out. All those pre-printed clauses, they're going to be like, no, we don't like it. We don't like it. We don't like it. It's the only time that you're kind of really allowed, because we're told not to mess with those pre-printed clauses with our clients. Oria puts them there. Oria's hired a team of lawyers. They're there to protect us as realtors. Well, the bank doesn't care about protecting us as realtors, right? So their lawyer goes through it and slashes off half those Oria pre-printed clauses. Like, I'm not talking in the schedule. I'm talking through the whole body of our contract. You'll see a lot of them crossed off. You know, I'm going to try and see if I can pull up a contract and see. But in addition to regular listing paperwork, you have to pull up the certificate of power of sale, right? And the lawyer will fill this out on behalf of the bank. They know what they're doing. You just send it to them, and they're going to say, I, CIBC, hereby warrant that default under a first mortgage, which I hold on 123 Main Street, dated this day, and whatever the mortgage number is. Excuse me, I now have the power of authority under the provision of the Mortgage Act to sell this property under power of sale, whatever, and then the address of the property again. And it'll be the lawyer signs it, and you'll find they'll have a lawyer stamp on it at the bottom as well. So this is really only the additional piece of paperwork that you're going to be adding in with your listing agreement. On top of that, though, like I said, they're going to have you do that weekly update of what's happening in the area. So it's basically a CMA a week you're doing for the lawyer, because they want to go, what sold this week? How many showings did we have? Did we get any offers? What was the feedback? What sold in the area lately? You have to keep on top of that with the bank's lawyer. They really want to hear that feedback and what's happening and what's sold. So you're going to keep on filling out their sheet every week. Yeah.
So is there any way that we avoid contact with the previous owner?
So you're not in contact with the previous owner, foreclosure, power sale. You're dealing directly with the lawyer.
They won't be aware of anything, right?
They will be aware because it's public knowledge. If they go on,
Bank and I. Let's say I have a power of sale. I don't contact the previous owner.
not at all. Not at all.
We deal with the bank.
Yeah. Yeah. But it has happened to us where, because it's the listings up on realtor.ca, that the homeowner is disgruntled and calls and yells at us for putting it up for sale. Why are you putting my house up for sale? And I'm like, I'm sorry, like, we got hired by the bank. You know what I mean? It's a tough position to be in. You don't have to deal with them. No, nothing. Yeah. And even if they call and yell at you like that, you just direct them to the bank or the bank lawyer. If you have any questions, feel free to ask the lawyer. Like, we don't know. We've just been hired. You know, we've just been contracted to put the property up for sale. Oh, not power of sale, because the bank doesn't put anything into their name or switch title or anything. Foreclosure, it might, but you find it never catches up in time. It never catches up in time because it takes.
Whatever's with you or.
So what you're gonna do is, when you do the listing, you're gonna fill out the bank or the lender. So it'll be CIBC taking the offer. Yeah. That's the one time you're going to ignore what's on title, because title won't change fast enough, even if it's foreclosure. But the thing is that at the end of the day, it's going to be the bank that's selling it. So it's whoever you're dealing with, right? It'll be whoever's on the certificate of sale. I, Community Trust, or I, ABC lender. We have to provide this to them for them to fill out and send back to us. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The power of sale,
Mhm.
After they sold it, so the seller wants to pay the money and get it back, they can.
Yeah, the homeowner can get it back.
It's not like.
They can. They still can. Yeah. Yeah.
bank take over the reality.
I don't know what the reason why you find the most, even though we call it foreclosure a lot of times the bank won't go through that process. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. We normally see power of sale because it's an extra process, but that's just the only difference is that they're actually they're taking ownership of the property. Right? So, yeah. But both instances, you'll find that no matter what, like I say to you, it is near to impossible. Everybody wants to give you the opportunity to get your house back. Right? So even in both instances, they'll have something written in their contract where even if the house is sold and you come to the rescue, you just won your lottery ticket yesterday, 15 days before, you're more than likely going to be able to save your property. Right?
Foreclosure maybe they cannot.
They have, even in power of sale, they cannot, it's up to the bank and they can choose not to. They can absolutely choose not to.
I think.
Yeah.
The power of sale, the seller has the one to take over.
As far as yeah.
When the seller put again offers the different agent get buy it for low price.
No.
Yes, you mean get someone else to buy it. I say, hey, Sri, you want to buy my house for a lower price? And then now I have well, the listing agent doesn't want to hear about it because I have to act ethically because I'm working for the bank and the lawyer. Co-ops do your own thing. I don't want to hear about it. So I know. Yeah, I know what you're saying, but the thing is even though it's written that way, it's not in stone. The bank can still, yeah. They can still turn. Don't be nervous. They're fun. You're getting a lot of interest. It's not like your regular listing where you throw it up and you pray and you go, please let there be showings, please let there be showings. You're gonna be flooded and you're gonna be overwhelmed for like a couple of days. You're gonna go, wow, this is awesome. A million phone calls. Sorry?
People are actually interested.
Yeah.
Because they
think they're gonna get a good price, yeah. Hmm. You're not gonna be praying for showings. I guarantee it. Mhm.
Just look over the paperwork. I'll give you this on it first.
Is everyone good online? Did you have any questions? Everybody's quiet this morning. Yeah. Like I say, there's no hard and fast rule. Every lender is kind of different that you work with, and they're going to have different ways to do it. Some will make you wait 10 days. Some won't. They'll say as soon as you get an offer, send it in, You just want to sell it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they're just going by whatever the lender, like the bank, is instructing them to do. So,
So one question.
sorry, I know this is so quiet on here. Why is it so quiet even though the volume's up high? Does anybody know? I can't hear anybody on the laptop. No? Can you?
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm
hi,
not on my
Christine.
laptop. I'm sorry.
Hi, Christine. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, regarding foreclosure, what's the price like? The market value if
Hold
finally
on
happen
one
in
second. I got to
foreclose.
figure out how to turn this up higher. I don't know why it's so quiet.
Okay.
Oh, here, let me try this. Nope, this is 100%. Anybody know why the laptop's so quiet? Someone, yeah?
If the bank gets extra money, they're not gonna give back to the seller.
No. No, they don't want to.
But if it's a power of sale.
They have to give the balance back. Yeah. Because the seller's still the owner on title for that property. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to take your question online. I just don't know how to turn the volume up higher. Do you want to type it to me? I'm on the this laptop, not mine, because mine got stolen. They smashed my car and stole it. So I have it turned up all the way. Nobody knows. I went into settings here. Here. It's so quiet I can barely hear. Audio, see audio's there. quiet it is?
Yes.
Try the other speaker.
There we go. Okay, now I'll be able to hear you. Please ask your question.
Yes, Christian, like
Yeah.
in foreclosure sale, like the price, like what the bank will go in a like lower price or like market value, like something like that.
They're going for highest bidder. So in either case, they're just looking to basically recoup what they're out for the mortgage, right? But the bank will make you fill out an like a CMA saying what the market value is, so they know that you're selling for fair market value as well. So say you say fair market value is 850, but the mortgage is only 700, really they'll be happy with anything above and beyond that. You know what I mean? If you give them 780 and that's the highest you're able to push it because there are repairs needed in the property, then they'll take it. You know, they're basically just looking to recoup what they're out.
Okay, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Right. As usual, don't worry. If you guys come across foreclosure or power of sale, please let me know and I'd be happy to help you with your paperwork, with anything, dealing with a lawyer. I'm always here. You guys know that. So feel free to reach out to me. All right, everybody. Have a lovely morning. I also, oh, everybody, TREP training this Thursday coming up. Who signed up? Who hasn't? Everybody online, have you listened? If you haven't, let me know. Let me know because there's only so many spots left. I have to check my RSVPs. Travis coming in to do the Realtor Toolkit on Thursday for 2 hours. So if you have an RSVP to me, let me know. Yeah, I think I have you guys down already, right? Yeah. Thursday. Onto your email, as you don't get your tag when you go to the door. All right, goodbye, everyone. Thank you. Okay, awesome, Sadia. That's great. Do you register for Wednesday? Awesome. I think Wednesday's going to win because that's what vote is happening right now in my poll. So awesome. I will see you guys all on Thursday. Please let me know if you're coming if you haven't already. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.